Hello, namaskar, 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 and namaskar. My name is Pooja Dwivedi. I welcome all of you to my class. This class will deal with the important segments that might reflect in your UPSC Prelims paper. Not only that, but how to apply the static information as well as the current information in the upcoming exam, all that will be dealt with. Before I begin, I would like to inform you about a course, that is the Prelims to Interview course. If you're looking at a one-stop solution, you have come to the right place, because here we will prepare you not only for prelims, mains, but also the interview. These will be live classes starting from 19th of June onwards, from Monday. Now you must take admission into this because you will be provided everything at one place, from study material to classes to mentorship, psychological guidance as well, mains test series, prelims test series, and a mains residential program for all of those who are going to qualify Prelims 2024 and are enrolled in this batch. So we shall see you soon in the StudyIQ campus. Now, if you want to get all this, you must visit the website, and this costs ₹60,000. But if you use the code PDLive, you will get it for 29,999. Only hurry up. Now, let's move towards the events that we are going to cover step by step and question by question. Consider the following statements. The Deoband movement sought the moral and religious rejuvenation. The keyword here is rejuvenation of the Muslim community. The Aligarh movement sought the well-being of Muslims through Western education and British government sponsorship. The Ahmadiyya movement based itself on the lines of the Brahmo Samaj. So what do we have to see? We have to see which of the statements, which of the statements given above is or are not correct. Alright. So if we talk about the Deoband movement, yes, it did seek moral and religious rejuvenation. That means it was a revivalist movement. Whichever movement wants to look back to the traditions and the rituals that are related to a particular religion and want to revive it again, so that people from that community could feel glorified. So that is a revivalist movement, and it is the Deoband movement. Then we have the Aligarh movement. This was a reformist movement. They wanted to structurally reform whatever issues were there gradually in a fashion that is not abrupt in nature, so that it does not attract any sort of protest. So this was the Aligarh movement, and Aligarh movement wanted the education of Muslims through Western education, specifically science and English, and interpreting it according to the traditional education. So it was a mixture of both. And yes, they did talk about British government sponsorship. Ahmadiyya movement was a liberal movement, and it also was in favor of Western education, and it was on the lines of Brahmo Samaj. All three statements are actually correct, and that is why none of the above will be the correct statement, a correct answer, because we had to select the not correct statements. See, why have I asked you this question? Because a very weird case has been registered for the Darul Uloom Deoband. The case, as in this case has occurred with us, in which a notice was issued for the students of Darul Uloom. This is a seminary in Saharanpur, Uttar Pradesh, which said that students shouldn't get any additional education apart from whatever education that they are getting in the seminary. And the Uttar Pradesh Commission for Minorities has called on the chairperson of the education of Darul Uloom. It's a prominent Islamic seminary in Saharanpur, Uttar Pradesh. It's a movement. If we talk about Deoband movement, it was organized by the Orthodox section of the Ulema Muslims, and it was a revivalist movement. It propagated the pure teachings of the Quran and the Hadith to the Muslims, talking about keeping alive the jihad against the British rule or foreign rule. It started from the Saharanpur district only, Darul Uloom Deoband in Saharanpur, and that was the year 1866. By whom? By Muhammad Qasim Nanotavi and Rashid Ahmad Gangohi. Okay, so that is why we need to know about it. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, very famously we know that he started the Aligarh movement. He was in favor of the Western education system, specifically science and English. He wanted the Muslims to reform themselves according to the needs of the modern world, and that is why he was in favor of it, to reform the social, political and educational auras of the Muslim community and modernize the education system. Also, he was in favor of other things such as science, as I told you. So, he established the Scientific Society in 1864, and the Aligarh Institute Gazette was a prominent gazette of that. This was done to translate the Western education journals into Urdu and other sorts of translational things so that the Muslims could interpret it. Now we talk about Ahmadiyya sect. Ahmadiyya sect is a sect which originated from India, and this movement originated by the efforts of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad in 1889. And it was based on liberal principles, as it was based on the lines of Brahmo Samaj. They wanted Ahmadiyya movement to become the standard bearer of the Mohammedan Renaissance, like the Renaissance of Europe. This movement spread Western liberal education, so they were in favor of Western liberal education as well. With respect to the Chamundi Hill temple, consider the following statements. It is a Vesara style temple. The Vodiyars are credited for expanding the temple from its original plan, and it is also known as Krauncha Pitham. So what do we have to see? How many statements given above is or are correct? So if we talk about it being a Vesara temple, no, it was a Dravida style temple. It had a pyramidal Vimana, and of course that is one of the prominent features. Yes, the Vodiyars, they were a worshipper of Devi Chamundi. So Devi Chamunda or Chamundi is the presiding deity of Mysuru, and that is why they are credited for expanding the temple. It is also known as Krauncha Pitham. This is definitely correct. So first is not correct, second is correct, third is correct. How many are correct? Two statements only are correct, and this is the temple that we are talking about, the Chamundi Hill temple. And you see, this is the Vimana, which is pyramid in nature. If we talk about the Nagara style, it is curving in nature. The main temples, Shikhara. Okay, Shikharas are known as Vimana. And that is why this is very different from the Nagara style temple. And we have the entrance, Gopura. And then there are different other shrines as well, shrines of other deities. Okay, so you see Nagara, Dravida and Vesara temple. This is the Dravida temple. On the lines of this only, the Chamundi Hill temples have been formulated. Now, what is Dravida? If we talk about it, these are temples which are enclosed in an enclosed wall. The compound is enclosed, and the front wall has an entrance or the gateway which is known as Gopura. It's in the center, and the shape of the main temple tower is known as Vimana. Okay, and this is the Vimana that I'm talking about. It is like in stepped version, like steps. And then we have the Shikhara over here. Dravidas, if we talk about Nagaras, they are curved in nature, right? So this is the major difference. Then they are also, we can also find large water reservoirs in them. There are subsidiary shrines of different deities as well that could be there. Kanchipuram, Thanjavur or Tanjore, Madurai, Kumbakonam, these are the famous temples of Tamil Nadu, which are formulated according to the Dravida style. They became rich administrative centers, not only for worshipping but other centers as well. Shopkeepers used to thrive there. Other than that, administration system was such that the Rajas and the kings used to go there for getting the sanctions by the Brahmanas, like this. Moving ahead, the Chamundi temple is on the Chamundi hills. It is dedicated to goddess Chamundi or Chamundeshwari. She is the presiding deity of Mysore, and she is the temple of this is the temple of goddess Chamundeshwari. It is a Shakti Peeth. That means it has a lot of energy. It is also one of the 18 Mahashakti Peethas of the world, called Krauncha Pitham, because in the Vedic era, this place was known as Krauncha Puri. So remember that. It is just 13 kilometers from the city of Mysore or Mysuru. In the Skanda Puran, this region was known as Trimuta Kshetra, and this Trimuta Kshetra is enclosed by 8 hills, and Chamundi Hills is believed to be one of those 8 sacred hills. Initially, it was a small-sized, 1,000-year-old temple, and its fame spread far apart when the Vodiyar dynasty took over the reign of the kingdom in Mysore in 1399 AD. And accordingly, they renovated it. So Krishna Raja Vodiyar III renovated the temple in 1827, and he also installed Sinha Vahana, gave cars for the deities, which are still used for the deities. Now, let's talk about the next question. Which of the following protected areas lies to the north of the Brahmaputra River? Dibru Sakhova, Khulongapar Gibbon Wildlife Sanctuary or Gibbon Wildlife Sanctuary, Manas Wildlife Sanctuary, Lakhova Wildlife Sanctuary. So let us see. Why have I asked you this question first of all? Because pre-monsoon floods are already occurring and affecting more than 34,000 people across 11 districts in Assam. Soil erosion is the major problem because we can see that damage in 4 of these districts such as Kachar, Jorhat, Kamrup and Nalbari. This is more in the urban area, the issue. Okay, and this is the Brahmaputra River which is flowing, and there are so many protected areas which nourish these particular protected areas. Manas Wildlife Sanctuary, Orang National Park is to the north, Laukhova is over here to the south, Kaziranga is also to the south, then Hulongapar is to the south, and Dibru Saikhova is over here to the south. But we have the Manas Wildlife Sanctuary to be in the north, so the correct answer will be Manas Wildlife Sanctuary. We had to select the north one. Okay, moving ahead. Consider the following statements. The Arabian Sea had witnessed a 10 millidegree warming between the year 1960 to 1995 and which increased to 35 millidegree after 1995. First statement. Second statement is saying that the increased warming of the Arabian Sea is due to the lower capacity to dissipate accumulated heat. So what do we have to see? Choose the correct answer using the following quotes. Let's see which ones are correct and if any statement is explaining the first or the second one. Yes, the Arabian Sea's water temperature is rising year by year. It did witness a 10 millidegree warming between the year 1960 to 1995, but it has increased not to this much. So first statement becomes incorrect by itself. The increased warming of the Arabian Sea is because of the lack of dissipating heat. That means it is not able to evaporate the heat it is absorbing. That causes the Arabian Sea to get warmer and warmer. Only the second statement is correct. First statement is actually not correct. So statement 2 is correct, but statement 1 is not correct. Although if statement 1 could have been correct, then statement 2 would have been the correct explanation of statement 1. So the Arabian Sea's temperature is rising. That is why we are seeing so many cyclones in the Arabian Sea. And traditionally, it has been a relatively cooler water body compared to the Bay of Bengal. And that is why in the Bay of Bengal, more cyclones were witnessed as compared to the Arabian Sea. And the number of cyclones in Arabian Sea in the recent years have increased by almost 52% in the past 2 decades. That is from 2001 to 2019, compared to the previous 2 decades from 1982 to 2000. The frequency of cyclones has increased, but the translation speed has decreased. What is translation speed? This is the rate at which the cyclone is moving. That is why we could see cyclone Biparjoy move at such a slow speed that it dominated the newspapers for almost a month. Alright, moving ahead to the other aspects. Additionally, there has been a staggering 150% rise in the occurrence of highly severe cyclones. That means their intensity and speed is increasing, which includes Vayu, Nisarga, Kyar and Tokte as well. The Arabian Sea has witnessed a 10 millidegree warming per year from 1960 to 1995, which has increased to 14 milledegrees after 1995 and not 35. Alright, it is due to the decreasing capacity to dissipate accumulated heat. It is keeping up these stocks, as in whatever heat is there, it is continuously absorbing it. That is fueling more cyclones, because whenever a low air pressure forms because of the heat, more cyclones will occur. Consider the following statements with respect to millets. India produces all 9 common millets. India is the largest exporter of millets. India is the second largest producer of millets, and millets are gluten-free and rich in fiber. How many statements given above is or are correct? India, yes, produces all common millets, and in the world, bajra or pearl millet is the most commonly grown millet. Okay, these are also gluten-free and they are rich in fiber. India is actually the largest producer and not second largest producer of millets. And it is the second largest exporter of millets. Okay, so these kind of confusing questions could come. First statement is correct. Second is not correct. Third is not correct. Fourth is correct. 2 statements only will be the correct answer. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has recently collaborated with Grammy Award winning Indian American singer Falguni Shah for a song to promote millets. This song is known as The Abundance in Millets, and that is why this question has been asked. Now, if we talk about millets in particular, the important facets, that it is actually a collective term which is used for small seeded annual grass. This is grown as a grain crop primarily on marginal lands in dry areas in temperate regions, subtropical and tropical regions. So prelims could ask you this, which kind of regions? So temperate, tropical and subtropical. Some kinds of millets that are found in India, grown in India: finger millet, which is ragi; jowar is sorghum; bajra is pearl millet; sama is little millet; and variga is proso millet. Moving ahead to the other aspects of this, the benefits and everything else, but before that we have to know that over 30 countries, 131 countries, there is the traditional food of these 131 countries. India is the largest producer of millets, accounting for 20% of global production and 80% of production in Asia. It produces all 9 common millets. Largest producers in order: first is India, second is Niger, and third is China. It is the second largest producer of millets, exporter, beg your pardon. Largest producer, second largest exporter. Now if we talk about state specific in India, which is the largest millet producing state, it is the Rajasthan region, as in the state of Rajasthan. Then we have Karnataka second, and which is followed by Uttar Pradesh. Top 3 states in India producing largest amount of millets. It is drought resistant. That is why during the climate change, these kind of grain crops are the most important ones. They require less water, can grow in good even in moderate soil condition, in poor soil condition. So that is why, looking at the impacts of climate change on agriculture, the importance of millets are increasing. These are good source of fiber, protein, vitamins as well as minerals, and are gluten free. They can grow in variety of soils, so it's a good livelihood source for farmers. Now moving on to the next question, which is: consider the following statements. Influence of major economies, influence on global financial stability, conditionality of loans, and lack of transparency. Now, what do we have in our question? How many of the above mentioned statements are criticisms of the International Monetary Fund? How many of them? First is definitely a criticism because of the reform calls that are being argued for IMF and World Bank. It is being said that countries such as the USA, they try to manipulate the global financial stability for their own gains through the IMF. So first is definitely correct. Once that has been done, any issue with one particular country becomes an issue for all the particular countries, other countries. Why? Because our global economy is now intertwined. There is also conditionality of loans. Whenever IMF wants to correct the financial issues of some country, they give certain conditions and then only they give loans. So this could be structural or superficial. That has an impact on the sovereignty of the country. And then there is also lack of transparency. How the decisions are made, that is one of the biggest problems that needs reform. So all 4 are the correct criticisms of the IMF. That makes all 4 to be the correct answer. Alright, so all 4. Option D is the correct answer. Now, let's talk about the explanation. UN wants profound changes in the IMF and the World Bank. IMF was born along with the World Bank at a UN conference in Bretton Woods. These are known as Bretton Woods twins, World Bank and the IMF, in July 1944, to have economic cooperation amongst these countries so that the Great Depression of the 1930s cannot be repeated. IMF is working as per the Bretton Woods Agreement to encourage international financial cooperation and introduce a system of convertible currencies at fixed exchange rates. Also replaced gold with the US dollar for official reserve. Okay. Moving ahead, if you are asked this question about the IMF, be very mindful of it. So, moving on, it provides financial assistance in cases of balance of payment problem if it occurs. This has happened with India as well. The IMF lends money to replenish international reserves, stabilize currencies which are destabilized, and strengthen the conditions for economic growth. It also has IMF surveillance. That means if the condition of any currency is going down, it can intervene, and has capacity development in the form of certain policies that it proposes. Do some tax changes, do some structural changes. So all this can be done through IMF. Now, if we talk about the criticism specifically, first criticism is the conditionality of loans. If you want the loan, you have to abide by what we are saying, make certain changes. Influence of major economies, I have told you this. There is also lack of transparency. That has a problem on the poor, that has an impact on the poor developing countries. It has an influence on the global financial stability. A policy change in one country can translate into a major policy change for other countries as well. So these are the certain criticisms. I hope you understood. With respect to the World Day to combat desertification and drought, consider the following statements. This year, the theme is Her Land, Her Rights. The day was observed in 1995 for the first time. Which of the statements given above are correct? First statement is definitely correct. This day was established in 1994 but celebrated for the first time ever in 1995. That is why these are tricky questions. So first and second, both the statements are correct. Both 1 and 2 will be the correct answer. Now today is the World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought. Every year June 17 is celebrated. So to raise awareness about the importance of land to have an increased income, foster economic resilience, guarantee food security for the community. The United Nations has recognized this particular day to restore the land that has already been damaged and preventing further desertification. The aim is to find workable methods, that means those methods which are employable to ensure that the reversing of the damage can occur. The theme for this year is Her Land, Her Rights. That means the twin objectives to be achieved are the land rights of women and gender equality and land degradation neutrality. The advancement of land rights for women and girls worldwide is the major focus of the theme. This day was observed in 1995 already, although this was created in 1994, and a convention was also formed, which was the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Now, if you want the PDF of this particular class, you can contact me through my Telegram channel. You can ask any question with respect to UPSC from me from my Instagram channel at my Instagram channel. Thank you so much for watching.